It's here, rescued from Alaska. This year, my first ever book, 3 Motions. Motions is an old English word for puppet shows. Indeed, there are 3 puppet plays here written by myself for my Alaskan puppetry classes, including my versions of the medieval classic Everyman, cleverly entitled Every Puppet, and even better, my retelling of the Faust legend, updated for the 21st century, also very cleverly, with a special introductory essay on the meaning of puppetry. Now, are these 50-page booklets physically worth the $25 price? No. But this isn't about material possessions. This is about being part of this odd channel and whatever it is we're doing here, trying to understand things. And these little booklets are unique. Each one is numbered and signed by yours truly. When they sell out, they are gone. I will never reprint them. Special deals if you want multiple copies for a production of your own. Just let me know you're doing it. That's $25 for the USA, Canada, Mexico, most of Europe. There may be some corners, I don't know, Russia, etc., and might require some extra money, as would Asia, Latin America, and Africa, or Tonga, or Australia probably. I'll have to add another $5 or so, depending on where you're from. But part of the money goes to my assistants who are shipping these from me from their respective American and European locations. Use the links below, PayPal, GoFundMe, and make sure you add the word book, B-O-O-K, book, to let me know this is not just a normal contribution to the channel, which you can still make. This book will not last long. Help me keep the channel alive. I get no other funding except from you, the viewer. I don't get it from YouTube. I don't get sponsorships. It's up to you. If you appreciate what I do on this channel, get a book. It's a great way to remember what this channel was about, and it'll be something unique because they're all signed and numbered. Well, welcome. This is BYRNE coming to you from Tbilisi, Georgia on a quiet evening. It's 11 o'clock here at night. I'm going to go for maybe 2 hours or a little bit less, hour and a half or so. We'll see how I feel, how many people show up. And I thought what I would do is, part of it is, it's almost Christmas, and wanted to wish you a bit of Christmas cheer. But also, I wanted to tell you what's been going on and what's going to happen in the future. Talk about 2025. There will, however, be another one of these on New Year's Eve to count in the New Year's Eve, and that will be a special one. I'll mention some of the same things here, like you need to get a book, and talk about my Florence trip coming up on the 2nd of, well, actually early in the morning. It's more like 5 o'clock in the morning, 2nd of January, and why I'm doing that. I've talked about that a little bit. Some of you may have read that. But, yeah. So let's see. There was a whole series of questions by a guy who goes by the name of Ouroboros Reflections, who will be... he has some interesting questions. I'll get around to those a bit later. But I think what I'll do is, okay, I'll save that for a moment, is light comes up. Tell you a little bit about what I'm going to do this evening. For one thing, what I am going to do is answer questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. Or if you're really enthusiastic about coming and talking on the channel, I will give you the, I am ready to give you a copy of the invite, and you can come on with me and talk. That's up to you. And I can't host more than, say, 2 or 3 people at a time, but I certainly am willing to talk. I like talking to one at a time, whatever works. Some of the subjects are that we'll be discussing tonight is what I'm going to be doing in Florence and why this is so important to me. And another thing is there will be another gathering in Georgia, and I have more information about that. And it's connected to my birthday as well. We will talk more about that as we go along. Also coming up, I'm going to be discussing some of the videos coming up. I suppose there are people who are both like, BYRNE, where is the rest of the cute series, Cute and Creepy? There are two things really high on my list. I just got done with one of them, and one of them was to do something about the situation here in Tbilisi, which I did a couple of weeks ago. And you should go and look that up if you want to know, if you've heard anything about the politics and protests here going on in Tbilisi. That is my take on that. And that was something I had actually saved a lot of material on that stuff, both my own videotaping, what tape? Videography, and also things I had found in online and such. I may do a slightly different one with more up-to-date material on my Georgian Crossroads channel soon. We will see how I feel. For one thing I don't want to do is draw a lot of attention to my thoughts on this issue, simply because it is tense, and I have different friends here who have different thoughts. I mean, I just had one friend over the other day who's much more on the side of the government, and other friends who are totally they don't want to hear anything from the government. So it's and I don't feel it's my place to to drill down on them in talking and try. Well, really, you should do this. I do give my opinion, but I always say, I'm an American. What do I really know? And things are really complex here. And they've been complex since before the time of Christ. So it's not like things are going to just resolve instantly and anything like that. So that's what's coming up a little later. We'll talk about what kind of videos and subjects that are coming up. And yes, indeed, the Cute and Creepy series is right at the top. I have one other video that's higher up that I need to make, and that is my fabled Jimi Hendrix video. Fabled because this is the whole subject is the thing that got me doing all the research that I do in the first place when I first heard Jimi Hendrix in 1967. But we'll talk about that more in a bit. So hang on for that. Let me just see if anybody is trying to say anything to me. Give a look before I continue. Yeah, I should do that. And hello, Bill and Mrs. Weaver. Hello. I don't know who you are exactly. I do know who the Big Island Beach is. Aloha to you. And yeah, so welcome to the evening. Glad to have a few people here. Hopefully there will be more. And if you want to identify yourself, feel free to. And like I said, and if you wish to come on and talk live with me, mano a mano, just say so in the comment section and I will give you the link. So it's just that simple. So let's see. Okay. Well, while I'm waiting for a few more people to assemble, I'm going to play us a wonderful little tune by one of the Nakauri sisters here in Georgia. This is something from about 4 or 5 years ago. You never see her face. It's Leila Nakauri. Later, she showed her face much more, but in this one, it's just kind of a nice, pleasant piece. She's playing on the panduri, which is somewhere between a bouzouki and a mandolin, but with kind of nylon strings on the guitar. So this lasts for 4 minutes. I will be back. Go grab yourself tea or some sort of drink or whatever, and come back and talk to me. Okay, there we go. Beautiful song there. It's one thing I love about being in Georgia. People here will say, especially during this time when there's all this political stuff going on, it's just like, why are you here? And they act like it's kind of like we're having a family struggle. Maybe you should go home. No, they're not that direct, but they wonder what an American sees here. And I see so many things, including the music. So that is what is going on here. Now, let me, one thing I want to talk about is that I feel the need for a for creating a site where everything comes together. So just to let you know, you probably know this, if you read any of my description sections, which some people do and a lot of people don't, you will realize that I have, count them, 5 different YouTube channels. So obviously I have this one, and this is, I would say, the main channel because it's mostly for ideas. But then I have another one for just, that it's a newer one called the Anadrome. This is the Anadromist, that's me. The Anadrome is the place where I talk about movies and music and certain things that are more popular culture and even art. And that's what that channel is for. And it's been growing fairly well. Um, I think I have one video there that's got over 5,000 views rather, and others that are well over 1,000, which is pretty good for a new channel. Better than this one. This one just seems to be just kind of like trundling along. But the thing I do know about this channel is that the people who come here are serious. I get a few more trollish people, people who like to be contrarians over there at that channel, especially if you say any sort of opinion about things. Then you know, movies and music, people take that more seriously than ideas. So you will get people there who will say, "Hey, wait a minute." I do get those people here too, but not to the same degree. The people here, somehow I got lucky. It's probably not luck, but there are a lot of people here who are, I think, a bit more thoughtful. And maybe it's just I've culled. For instance, every now and then I will get someone who just likes to write kind of nasty things, or not nasty, you know, not belligerent, but the kind of things you could tell. I won't stop them from visiting, but there's one case where I have. But most of the time, I'll just kind of silence them if they're not kind of paying attention to the general tone of the channel. Um, but over there, it's like, okay, if you want to say I don't know anything about these things, great, I'm fine. I'm pretty secure in whatever I think about these things. So, yeah. Well, let's see who we got. Tea and oatmeal prepared. Oh, great. Glad to hear that the dog catcher has his tea and oatmeal. I assume that's what TE stands for. Could be the oatmeal. No, tea. So anyway, like I said, if you got questions, put them down. I'll try to get to them. And unfortunately, because of the fact that I'm here in Tbilisi, I can't do any. I'll come back to my subject about the channels and one site to rule them all. I can't actually, you know, a lot of people you go and you see they have their comment section and they're getting super chats, you know, where people give them money in the middle of their live feed. I can't do that because I'm living in Tbilisi and I'm trying to figure out ways. It's really getting difficult because they're going through another generational upgrade, which to me is a downgrade of all of the material. So they're changing the coding for your basic internet services, and I'm starting to get locked out of things. I mean, I've gone around over and over on PayPal trying to get in. Finally, I'm now doing facial recognition to get into my PayPal account. These things drive me insane, but I understand also why it's happening because there's a lot more identity theft and scams and such going on. So, but anyway, so as a result, if you were so inclined to say, BYRNE needs some more money while we're talking, or feel like doing that, the best way to do it is just go ahead and do it through PayPal, and which of course is always listed in the description section below this and every video. Or if you want, you can do it through GoFundMe, which is somehow still active. I don't know how, you know, it just keeps going on. It's like the little truck that goes. But that's really good for people who need a little tax receipt. But the thing is, and I will know when you've done it, because at least on the PayPal site, because a little notification thing will pop up. But also, you could buy a book. And just to let you know, I'm going to play my book pitch one more time at the end. But what I want you to know is that my book of plays, I only had 80 of them. I'm down to 60. And again, there were only 150 made. I have another 30 or so sitting here, but I'm probably not going to send those out unless someone's really desperate for them, because it just, the mail system here, it works, but it's super funky and it's really bad for getting anything here, which is why I use another system called USA to Georgia to get packages here. But if you want to buy a book, I would suggest doing it, because once they're gone, they're gone. So there are 60 now left. There were 80 2 weeks ago.
And if you see the the trajectory here, they will all disappear rather soon. So if you want a book, that would be a really great thing you could do to help me, especially as I'm trying to go to Florence on the 2nd of January. And I'll talk more about it, but I definitely need a bit of help with that because I did buy the hotel and the plane tickets pretty cheaply, but I just had to spend about almost $200 on tickets for the museums. I forgot that part, and I purposely waited. I had to go. It's just the banking stuff is just driving me insane, which is something I'm going to talk to you about a little bit later. My computers and things like that, all of which are basically antiques. So yes, tea and brunching in Oregon's Willamette Valley. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I hope it's a good meal. I hope I don't interrupt you and disturb you too much while we're talking. So, let's see. Oh, yes. So I was talking about I need a site that brings everything together. I also need a site I can have a paywall because I've got special stuff that needs to go behind a paywall. And I was thinking about Patreon. People all say, Patreon, Patreon. But, the more I look at it, the Patreon has some problems behind the scenes when you just look at what's going on with them financially. And also, Patreon has been known to silence people whose ideas they didn't agree with. Now, I think actually we're further away from the cancel culture of, say, 2020 than we were then. And so I don't know if it's that hard anymore, especially with all the pandemic stuff. That just got crazy. But also, they didn't like certain ideas and such. But with the whole Trump election, one thing we can say, regardless of whatever else might be said, is it certainly means that there's been a huge dent put on the official version of cancel culture, and it's still out there. The back and forth isn't going to stop right away, but I think I can say if I did join Patreon, I probably wouldn't be taken off, and a lot of people know it. So I've been debating that. Another possibility is that I have already two sites rather, over at WordPress, and they are hooked together. And I could purchase the upgraded plan. I've been doing the free plan, and now they're really pressuring me. They started doing this ages ago, but now they're really pressuring me to spend some money and join. And I really like one is my Gravity from Above page, which has all of my writing and photos from my puppetry tours throughout Europe from 2012 up to I've been kind of remiss on it since about 3 years, put much less up there. Although I feel like I should because I've got new stuff. The other thing is that I also have my original, The Anadromous Life. Remember, anadromous means swimming against the stream. And this was the idea I came up with because in Alaska, we were always taking people on tours and we were talking about how salmon were anadromous fish, meaning they go out, they're born as little from salmon eggs in the water. They live a season or so, depending on which of the 5 species. And then the little fry, as they're called, swim out, or they grow up a bit in the streams and such, the freshwater streams, and then they go out into the salt water. And for instance, some of them, like the coho, really the sockeye, which is also known as the red salmon, go almost as far as Japan, which is kind of dangerous for them, given the Japanese attitude towards fish, which is they never met one they couldn't consume. They are going to, they then turn around, they do whatever they're doing out in the ocean, eating and swimming around, and then they turn around and come all the way back to basically the same little stream where they were born in, where I spent 22 years in Alaska, which is absolutely fascinating. But on the way back up the streams, they are the prey for everything. So the bears and the eagles and the coyotes and wolves and everything else is out to get them. The crows and ravens, certainly, and other birds. And they feast on the dead carcasses. The bears leave bloody carcasses all over. It's just an amazing thing. But something struck me in that. It's like, yeah, that's what life is like, especially when you're trying to live the good life. You're trying to get back home, and it's difficult, but you're doing that to reproduce. You're doing that to bring something new into the world, which is why I use the phrase the anadromous life, and then the anadromist, and then the anadrome. It's all part of the same concept of going back up against the river. And as G.K. Chesterton once said, only a dead thing floats downstream. A living thing goes against the current. So, so here's the deal. So I'm trying to find one site to rule them all. And the other thing that just occurred to me is I noticed that the guys over at Trigonometry had been doing locals. So I went over to locals. I looked at it. I said, I don't really like this system. And, you know, there are other things I've looked at. And then finally I said, oh, Substack. Can I load? It's really important that I can load audio files up to Substack, because what I'm sitting on is I've got a lot of lectures that I did. I did a kind of a funky version of church history for my local church. It's not the deepest thing in the world, but it's probably better than what most people get as an introduction. I also did. I have more Labrie lectures of myself on CDs, burnt CDs that I've done, and I've got an 85 part series on the 20th century, all just audio recordings that I culled and put together. Now, I could try to do. It would take me forever to do something on YouTube with those, because there's no visual material at all. And I'd have to, you know, it would take me, each one would probably take me about, I mean, the Rookmacher lecture that I just did a couple weeks ago on jazz and modernism, I highly recommend it, because it talks really about the origins of the cultural revolt against tradition in the 20th century. But that took me maybe 20 hours of research altogether and creating it and editing it. So I can't do that with 85 pieces. So what I'm going to do instead is put all the audio files behind a paywall, and then you got to pay me to access my audio magnum opus, which I did on KHNS radio. I had a radio show that I did every Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock, and it was called The Word as Spoken. And it was just, I have a massive spoken word library, and it is over 1,000 vinyl recordings of spoken word records, many of those box sets. So I have I say over 1,000 records, but truthfully, I have one Churchill record that's 16 pieces of vinyl, lots of box sets in there, readings of Alice in Wonderland, the history of World War II. I mean, I've got so many World War II ones. So I culled those and I actually started with World War II and then came around. So the ones at the beginning, the early part of the 20th century, sound really good. And then you might get to the World War II ones and say, he's just playing this record, which is what I was doing. So, but anyway, I want those behind a paywall so that people can come. Because also, I don't want it to be public access. I want it, there might be some kind of rights. I have no idea where audio recordings fit into the rights, spoken word recordings, particularly old news broadcasts and such, fit into the world of rights. It was really gray area in radio. And when we later, after I left the radio station and went out to work in the field doing tourism and stuff like that, they started streaming, and I realized I probably could not get away with that. But when I first got to Alaska in '96, for about 10 years or so, I did this show, and I felt like, on such a cutting edge that nobody in the country was doing anything approaching that. And I felt like I had an experimental license to do so. So let's see. A little tea there. What are we doing? Oh, well, we're going to talk more about the one site to rule them all. One of the issues with all these sites is they cost a bit of money. And truthfully, I'm always running on a deficit. I mean, imagine how much I'm making every month with regular people generously giving me money. Imagine that, and then just cut whatever that number is way down, because I don't get that much. But I am so grateful for what I do get. I am especially grateful for all the people who contributed to my crazy Alaska plan that didn't quite go the way I hoped it would earlier this year. And but the good things, by the way, if you were one of the people who did not get their 50 Georgian songs or 100 Georgian songs, I've left this list on the wall. Let's see if we can get it there. It's still there. And making me feel guilty for not finishing it. Part of the problem is it's just, I just finally sent off. There were some people who donated a bunch of money to get the whole, there were 3 people, and I only allowed 3 people to do this, to get the whole 20th Century The Word Is Spoken series, all 85 episodes. I finally just sent them because it was so much pain sending it. And even then, I didn't send, I sent the versions that came off of CDs, which had little numbered markers. So there are all these little files that create one big thing. And I'm only one person. So it's kind of hard to get everything done. But yeah, I will be sending those. It may not be until after I get back from Florence in the middle of January on the 15th, but I haven't forgotten you. I've just been so distracted, and I tried to do less work on this, and I'm doing more work on this. And I guess I'm hoping it provides a little more income, but it doesn't. It just kind of plods along. And there have been little increases, but then people who say, sorry, BYRNE. And I understand, we're living in tough times. So we'll just leave that there for now. We'll come back to that a little bit later. But keep in mind, I also have other channels. I mentioned I have the Anadromous Life, which is an essay site, which there's a lot of really good writing there. Some of the writing I really appreciate. Also, there is my channel. So there's this channel, the Anadromous, the Anadrome, which is for movie and music and other media. Then there is Gravity from Above, which is my channel. That's the first one, actually. And it's been kind of poking along towards about 1,500 subscribers over there. This is just where I leave documents. So I have all of my puppetry not all, just a fraction of my puppetry documentaries stuff over there. So I have interviews with people and images of puppet theaters and things like that. Also, some of my Alaskan life there. But you can wait. I'm going to put an Alaskan life video, what my life was like in Alaska, a couple days after Christmas. So that's coming up. And then let's see, what else have we got? We've got, oh yeah, then there's Georgian Crossroads, and now it's called Georgian Crossroads and Beyond. And that deals with my life here, but now it's going to deal with more traveling stuff. And I just put up a video over there called The Georgian Iceberg. So it's these iceberg memes. You may have seen them where people say this is what's above water of what people know about a subject, and this is what's below, and way at the bottom is the stuff only the people who really know. So I've seen those from movies and music and such, but I did one for the country of Georgia, and that suddenly got over 1,000 views, which I thought was quite nice, considering I wasn't even expecting it to get that many. And then I have my sneaky channel, which is called Lacrimatorium. You will find links somewhere for it. But what's over there, I've been putting up, one of the things I rescued from Alaska are my musical experiments that were on CDs. And these were done on old cassette tapes. Some of them are still on cassettes, and all my cassettes are back in Alaska. Hopefully, some of them will still play when I go to get them. But there we are. That's where I've been putting them. So I put 3 up recently. Um, and there's one up right now that's very seasonally. It's called The Year's Midnight, and it's strange music and poetry and stuff. And this is something I did back in 1981, but it holds up quite well. But again, that channel, I don't really do anything to it. I just put stuff there, and if it creates a question mark, I'm happy. And there is one video there that's got 1,500 views, but that was because it was an AI experiment featuring the voice, if not the music, of Billie Eilish. Just saying. So, and would anyone like to come aboard and join me and talk? Maybe you have some questions or ideas, or maybe you just want to hang out. Feel free. It's nice when people do that, because then, like right now, I can feel somehow I'm talking too much and my nose is getting plugged up. I don't have any, there's nothing wrong. For some reason, these days, as I'm getting older, I'll be 70 years old this year coming up. For some reason, when I talk too much, my voice starts to get plugged up. I have no idea what that's about. And anyway, I'll spell it for you. Lacrimatorium. That is my strange art channel. Okay, so what do we got? Okay, we're doing good. I'm just kind of going around checking things. So, by the way, I have sent out books through my people in Europe and in America. And more books are going in America. I left 50 books there and 30 in Europe, but more are going from America. I have the feeling America will be out and the European books will still be there. There will be some left because the Europeans are not as susceptible to commercial pitches. So, anybody else there want to identify themselves? I see a few people watching. Or, like I say, if you have any questions, actually, I think what I'll do, well, like I say, I'm looking if anyone wants to come on and hang out. At the very beginning of the of this, there was a guy who goes by the name of Ouroboros Reflections. Ouroboros is the worm that swallows its own tail. It's a symbol, circular symbol. Some people think it's a good thing. Some people think it's a very bad thing. But he has Ouroboros Reflections. He says, hello there. Sadly, he cannot attend the stream. And then he goes on and he says, were you thinking of doing more book reviews in the coming year? I saw the video you did on Gombrich's book on shadows and thought that was extremely well done. Thank you. And perhaps do something similar. Could be done for authors you like, a little Virilio Lewis, his more philosophical works, etc. I think it would be both very timely and very interesting. So let me deal with that while I'm waiting to see if anyone would like to come aboard. And also, if anyone would like to contribute anything, try PayPal while we're doing this. Okay, so yeah, I would like to. I've got some books I would. By the way, and I think I've told him this, there is a lecture, or not a lecture, a video, which is way on the low side of people watching, which means a lot of people have not seen this video. And I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorites. One thing I've learned a long time ago, I learned this when I was writing songs back in California when I was younger, that the pieces I most like are not necessarily the pieces other people like. So I used to write different songs when I was on these Jesus People communes, and people liked the humorous ones better than the serious ones, which really made me want to stop writing humorous ones. Not that I've stopped having a sense of humor, but I knew the songs weren't as good, and that people essentially have a weakness to gravitate towards things that are light. And as my life has gone on, I've cared a lot less about that. So, such is life. Maybe, someone actually recently said, you should have a lot more viewers, and suggested some things I could do to get those viewers, which basically means following the algorithms. And the more I've watched people discussing following the algorithms, the less I want to do it. Because people are now making views for the algorithms. They're making videos for their, and I don't mean the way someone would say this a couple years ago. I mean literally they're following the robotics of it. They're just simply, because what they're doing is they're saying YouTube is a way to make money. And here are the techniques for making money on YouTube. And one thing I've learned from my years of watching Jacques Ellul or reading Jacques Ellul is that once you follow the techniques rather than the content, you're dead. I mean, if you think I have anything to say, it's because I have lived the opposite of following the techniques. I mean, yeah, you got to follow techniques when you're doing things. Whenever I make a video, there's a good way to make a video, and then there are bad ways to make videos. It's not about making bad, technologically poor videos just to prove a point to someone. Rather, it's about not following what the technology may be forcing you into as a means to get more of a reaction. So I'm not going to do that. But yeah, so check out the, I think I already told him this, but check out the video called, I think it's Theatrical Beings in a Fictional World. What is it? Fictional beings in a theatrical world, which is really me discussing some of the reading I've done about theater and puppetry. And I think the reason why a lot of people didn't read that is because, frankly, it's a strange video. I'm talking about what you can learn deeply from reading theater theory books. Talk about a niche subject, except the whole point of it is it's not niche. And that we often, I think what I see about people doing is they will often will read things that everybody else is reading. And this happened a few years ago with Jordan Peterson, who will enter this conversation in a few minutes. And but they will do it, if something is what everyone's reading, they will do that. Whereas I don't do that. Oh, this is, one person said, you ought to spend more time reading philosophy. I go, why? Do I not have a mind? Am I not able to come up with my own concepts? And in fact, when I know philosophers here, at least two of them. And what was funny is they're both Heideggerian, and following the thoughts of Martin Heidegger. And one of them, we had a really great talk. I was invited over to a friend's house. He was there again. He had come over here earlier in the year, and we had a very interesting conversation. I said to him, his name is Ucha, which is Georgian name. And I said, Ucha, why don't you come over again sometime? He goes like, wait for about a year until I finish up my doctoral thesis. And I said, why? He goes like, you're too inquisitive. And he said it with like a wry smile. But I knew what he was saying. He wasn't saying he didn't want to talk to me. He was saying my set of questions is so far outside of his that it's like I'm just throwing rocks in his path and saying, well, why don't you stumble on those a while? So back in New York City, I knew these guys, a couple of philosophy students who were at NYU. And they were, we would get together. I worked for a while at this very independent record store where I was the only person in the store after the hour of 6 o'clock and stayed open until 10 or 11. It was up to me when I wanted to close. It was this very strange little, I wouldn't call it a hipster store because hipsters weren't there yet in the early 90s, but it was an independent store. And what I like to do once the rather forlorn manager left was to just hold court, talk to people, sell things, of course, but more it was about talking about ideas, talking about music, talking about art, talking about life. So I had people who came in there from all sorts of different kinds of people come, and we would talk. And these two philosopher students would come over regularly to talk to me. And one day I went out with them to dinner where we can have a concentrated conversation. And after a while, they looked at me. Now, they were always quoting. They would quote Sartre or Heidegger or Husserl or, Hegel or you could just go on and on and on if you know philosophy names. And at a certain point, they turned to me and they said, you know what's weird about you? I go, like, what? He goes, like, you have your own ideas. And I said, well, everybody has their own ideas. But the thing about philosophy students, it's a very strange thing, is they feel like they have to know everything before they can settle on an idea. So they have to read every philosopher they can possibly get their hands on. And then they can have enough ideas to start quoting philosophers. I've always considered it kind of comical. And I agree, some of what they're talking about is really important. It would be nice to know. I haven't got the time. You may notice there's a lot of books back there and a lot more in Alaska. I was just thinking yesterday, it's just like, oh, how am I going to get these books back? That's so much money I need to get, about, $30,000 or more dollars, $35,000, $40,000 to get them here. The rest of them, I'm going like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I go like, and I can get them here and then die because I'm, going to be 70. I'm not feeling like I'm going to die, but you can't, once you get, between the ages of 70 and 80, you don't place a lot of bets. But of course, that's exactly what I'm doing, is I'm saying this is important. And I was thinking, if I knew I was going to die because someone said you have cancer or something and it was inoperable, I'd start going, okay, where should all this stuff go? And but meanwhile, I want to use it. I just had a friend of mine who I knew in Alaska come here to visit me. His name was Zimba. It wasn't his birth name, you can be sure of that. Kind of a hippie-ish Lion King sort of name. But he's a mountain climber. And the funny thing is he really likes talking to me, although philosophically we're very different in many ways. But he was really impressed that I took him up to the top of the mountain behind me, and we had dinner. And then we walked down the mountain at the end. He was like, I'm really impressed. It's just like, I said, what, why? He's just like, you're just walking down this mountain. You're almost 70 years old. You're not. I go like, yeah, I feel something in my knees, but there's no point in, you stop doing stuff like that. You start babying yourself and you die. But also what keeps me going is the fact that I keep learning. That's part of the reason I want to go to Florence coming up. So let's see, what am I doing here? Well, I've been talking for 50 minutes. But yes, more books will be done. But go check out, if you haven't, go check out Theatrical Beings in a Fictional World. And it's not about the theater. It's not about puppets, even though it seems like it. It's ultimately about the fact that some things happened in this world that slipped over into the main world, and now we are all theatrical beings. And our world is fictional. This is the whole world we live in now. So what these, shall we call them theater theorists were thinking about is the world we're living in now. And once you realize that, you realize, oh, these guys have a grasp on something that certain philosophers have no idea about because they watched it happen. They were predicting it coming. They saw it coming in the middle of the 20th century and at the beginning. Very fascinating. So I'll get back to the rest of these questions. Okay, what do we got here? Dogcaster. People need to hear the serious stuff. Thank you. Uh, they tend. I like this. They tend to take the medicine with a spoonful of sugar. To quote Mary Poppins, do you like John Prine's song? Yes, but I'd never call those a spoonful of sugar if those two comments are in any way connected. And my feeling is actually the spoonful of sugar part is wrong. And they tend to like that. But what you end up getting is people who are addicted to the feel good. And that is the problem with particularly American society, but it's not just American society. This is why I'm making these videos called The Cute and the Creepy, because we have been essentially injecting ourselves with this message of positivity, of feel good, of cuteness, of this kind of weird version of happiness. We often say, well, didn't Thomas Jefferson say, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? And what they don't realize is that that word happiness meant something very different in the Constitution. It meant something more like deep satisfaction. Whereas for us, happiness is feel good. So, and one of the things that this other person was saying was basically like more people would watch if you essentially did stuff to, I don't want to say, he wasn't suggesting dumbing it down, but oh, I know what he was saying. You should do more stuff on kind of like daily life stuff, psychological, in other words, i.e., variations on self-help stuff. And you know what? I just did this thing on evil, which got a fair number of people watching it. That's as close as I get. Because again, self-help to me is a bit like cute. There's something wrong. I remember being in a bookstore. This was back in the 70s. And I was already thinking about these things then. I worked in 2 bookstores then. But later I remember I started to see this then. Then I saw a, what is it? Then I saw another bookstore in New York City, and I looked around. I said, "Okay, what's here that's got depth to it?" And I said, "Okay, we've got classic literature. We've got a philosophy and a history section. We've got some other stuff going on in the art section, and then there's huge places for the identity stuff, and more importantly, the self-help stuff. And the self-help stuff is often a way to anesthetize us to life, because you get this. Again, it's about techniques. You get this practical technique. But here's the problem with techniques. Life isn't about techniques. Life isn't about what you know. It's about day-to-day engagement and living. And so people want me to put these things into a formula. But what I'm trying to say, and I was thinking maybe I should, and what do you think? Should I do this? I'm thinking about a video where I put, basically, it seems like I'm doing a lot of stuff, but actually it all feeds back into one thing. And that is, it is about how to live, because, what else would you be talking about? But notice I said how to live, not, I have no interest in giving you my formulas for things. What I'm interested in doing is giving you the keys, and you can figure it out for yourself. Because I'll tell you, there was a kind of a self-help thing that crept into our Jesus People group in the middle of the 1970s. That led me into some issues that I fortunately later shook off and never returned to. But once I went to Switzerland, to L'Abri, I then saw, oh, you have to live with meaning and depth. And once I saw that you had to live with depth and study with depth and understand life with depth, I never went back. I never needed the little practical technique books. Not that, I have certainly watched videos of how to do this, how to do that. I'm always amazed when I see, material on addiction, or people talking about how to understand women or men, or, how to find your identity and all of this stuff. Because most of it's just techniques. And it's not, it's like every time I watch something about people talking about addiction, I'm always going, there's an elephant in the room you're not talking about: meaning. It doesn't matter the technique if you have no meaning. The meaning comes first. The person has to see meaning. If there's no meaning, everything, let's say you do succeed in becoming this new person, then you become really proud about it. So, no, it has to start with meaning, which is why, when people started talking about John Vervaeke's meaning crisis, I was like, oh, okay, it's good someone's finally saying this. I've been thinking it for 20 years by that time or more. So, but yeah. Right, but I see what you're saying about John Prine lightening up the serious. But again, John Prine has never been one of my favorite singers. I much prefer a Nick Cave, or I even like Kate Bush, or I like, Bob Dylan has never quite let me down, and such like that. So, yeah, I like that, Mrs. Weaver. Mom and Dad are 83 and 85, and they are still making plans. That's the thing. You can't stop learning. You can't stop choosing to do things, because when you do, I have something I say to myself. Maybe it's worth repeating. When you stop learning, you start dying. Period. So that's the problem we have. Upcycle, glad to see you, Ups. Kugario, how do you live within time when doing monotonous tasks for 8 hours a day? Well, I gave up doing monotonous tasks for 8 hours a day quite a while ago, which is one major key. The other thing is to find the meaning within what you're doing. Let's say, believe me, I have lived most of my life on, rather low level tasks. However, I always choose those low level tasks. So I chose and kept raising it until I learned all the stuff that goes on in a radio. Even though I'd never been hired by a radio station before, I worked as the program director and music director in KHNS and DJ for 10 years. And people thought I was really good, even though I have no training in the subject, because I chose other things to do before that got me there. So the point is this, and this is a very important point, you can live within time, which, if you've ever gotten very deeply into what I'm talking about, and I will make another time video soon, time is the key that's missing. And I noticed that even people like Jordan Peterson or John Vervaeke never talked about it, which they should, because it is the key to getting inside of everything. Do you want to find meaning? You have to live in time. You cannot find time in the visual spectacle. Most visual spectacles are about stopping time. Drugs are about stopping time, unless they're about speeding up time. But that's also a deformation in our relationship to time. You can't find love unless you spend time knowing someone before committing your emotions and body to them. Otherwise, you've got it back to front. Everything is about living in time. So you have to choose even the most mundane tasks living in time. How do you do that? Well, I've worked in a junkyard, in a mental institution, in a bookstore, I worked doing house painting in New York City. I worked in record stores. I worked as a tour guide in Alaska, worked at the radio station. There isn't one job I ever chose where I didn't also keep my eyes and ears fully open to what the job was, what it meant to people, how does one live this the most human way possible. I did have one job, however, that was a nightmarish, repetitious job, and I worked at this place. I lost this one job I had, suddenly had to look for a job. The first job that I found, someone told me about a job being a telephone answering machine, essentially, being one of these private services that for rich people to get messages from. And I saw what that was within a few seconds, worked there for less than 2 weeks and got myself out of that because it was just like, oh, what a drone activity this is. Hello. Yes, we will get a message to him. You can't find much meaning in that because you're not meeting the people you're giving messages for. See, to me, every job is about people. It's about finding meaning within the relationships, which is why working at the record store was great, especially the independent one. But even the big one I worked at when I first lived in New York City, because I met so many interesting people. So I think you have to find the meaning within a thing. Or as Solzhenitsyn talks about in One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, the main character there in his short, wonderful book gets meaning out of how straight he lays the bricks in the cold weather. He gets meaning out of the fact that he was able to smuggle a little piece of iron into the camp that he found on the ground. He gets meaning from the fact, I mean, there's just a beautiful scene at the end where someone just passes him a sausage and he gets meaning, deep meaning out of that. And I think we tend to live as if somebody owes us something. And so we live in envy, we live in fear, we live in monotonous existence. We live to have the entertainment stuff just kind of wash over us and fill up our time. And that's a good way to live without outside of time. To live only in the entertainment bubble, the screenal bubble, is to essentially live outside of time and to watch your life get swallowed up. Okay, well, I need to blow my nose, evidently. So I'm going to play you another song. This is by, again, the Nakuri sisters, who I really love. And I really hope to meet them and interview one or both of them. They're now older, but this was like one of the first videos I found by them. And seasonally, they're standing in the snow. This is about a 2-minute song. I'm going to blow my nose, see if I can clear it out. I'll be right back. Meanwhile, consider asking questions or consider, like I say, you can't make any super chats on my live stream because I live in Georgia, but you can go to PayPal and do something there. You can also buy a book, which also supports the channel. One of my puppet books, links are in the description. And I'll be right back. you are, the Nakaori sisters. The strange thing about I really love their work. Both their voices are wonderful, and they now do things separately. But you cannot find this music anywhere except on YouTube, and so I find that to be great. Well, my nose is a little more cleared up, but it'll get a lot more clogged. But by the time I get done with this, but I'm going to stick around for let's try for another hour. What do you think? And I'm going to get back to the big questions I was asked at the beginning by Ouroboros Reflections. But let me see what else I had on my mind here. So one of the things that has prevented me from starting up the channel that will bring everything together is simply the fact that there's just so much to do, and I have enough computer expertise to get it together, but not enough. I don't do any coding or anything like that, so that's why I need a system like Patreon or Locals or something. But I am thinking it's either that I go into WordPress and use that, or I go into Substack. I have a Substack page with about 4 or 5 essays on it, and I need to do that. So that is where I am with that. Hopefully, I will get that together as soon as possible. My problem is I keep getting swallowed up time-wise doing these videos. I would like to do less, but more. It's weird. And I just have so much writing I need to do. And maybe I'm just getting, more sluggish as I get older. But let me talk about a couple of other things here. Let me just mention, I've got some videos coming up. First things that I've got various subject matters that I've been working on. One is I've got another one on social contagion that's kind of a sequel to the one I did a couple months back. I've got another Rookmacher, several Rookmacher ones in the pipeline, particularly ones dealing with art and why art matters, but also why art. It's one is called Art Needs No Justification, and the other, which doesn't require so much visual work because it's more of a lecture about why we need art in our lives, which unfortunately many Christians have no conception of. They just think they like entertainment, but art and entertainment are two different things. And the other one is about the origins of modern art, and that's really interesting. He considers modern art to be basically almost like a Gnostic religion. But so those are coming up. Then I've made some other ones. I've got quite a few different subjects for my Anadromous channel, and so if you like me talking about music and movies and stuff, you really should sign up to the Anadromous channel, which is where I'm commenting from. But we'll say that. Also, before the end of the year, I've got some stuff lined up on the 28th of December here on the Anadromous. I've got kind of a video about my Alaskan life based on videos that I took while I was in Alaska. And I discuss some things, and then I show you the images as well. And I think that'll be interesting. A nice winter kind of mode, since some of it is taken from the middle of winter. And then I've got another one about my life in New York City. This was part of a couple of interviews that I did with James Wallace over at the 20th Century Music and Arts channel, which he was inspired to do by me, and I'm grateful that I had any sort of effect on him that way. And that's about my life in New York City, particularly with music and the kind of extremes of the noise and grunge and alternative culture. We still don't have a good name for that era, but I knew lots of people there. So there's another one of those coming up. We already had one on the 80s, and this will be the one on the 90s. So And then there's a discussion that I had with drummer Andy Edwards about minstrel music. And so we have a discussion about that. I've already done that on his channel. It's already been in the Anadrome, but it will be here, fill up a little space. And then I'm going to Florence. So some of these things will be coming out while I'm in Florence. And one of the things I'm going to start doing from Florence is giving you my impressions. Florence isn't just a Renaissance city, it is the Renaissance city. And I've already done a little video about why this is so important, and I would recommend going and checking it out if you haven't. I noticed that these kinds of videos, and even this, will only get about 200-300 views, which tells me who the hardcore people are who follow this channel. There are people who like the things that I do that are kind of reach out more, but whenever I do these kind of videos, I'm doing it for you who will watch it. And it's not about the algorithm, it's about connecting. And so I will be doing a Florence journal series or something like that, Florence Diaries. And here's the thing. Yeah, I'm going to see a lot of art. And yeah, it's some of the most important art in the history of the world. Fortunately, I've chosen a time when very few people are there. And architecture as well, of course. But I'm also feeling something else. One of the things that strikes me is we are at a moment in history where we need new ideas that are connected to tradition, but not new ideas that simply destroy the old tradition, which is what you get with postmodern ideas. They tend to, one of the funny things to me is that postmodern ideas tend to say, for instance, there are no grand narratives anymore. And I listen to that and going, well, what in the world are you talking about then? Because your narrative of there being no grand narratives anymore is a grand narrative. You're saying we know how knowledge is passed now, and it is passed in this chaotic form in which nobody can predict anything, and everything we think is right. Oh, by the way, all the stuff about social justice and everything, yeah, we are. That's totally on us as well. It's just weird. And of course, there's a grand narrative. And one of the things they also never mention is, well, there's obviously a mega narrative. There may not be a meta narrative in postmodernism, but you can't deny there's a mega narrative. And some of the mega narrative stuff is things like the Industrial Revolution and how it spreads throughout the world, World War II and how that affected the world, communism and how that affected the world. A couple of years ago, we had this big pandemic thing. That was a pretty big mega narrative. Also, everyone now has a smartphone. That's a really big mega narrative. And so is social media. All these things follow this whole thing that we're all in. So it's kind of weird to me that people say we have no idea how to answer these questions because everyone sees it differently. And I'm going like, really? You don't think that social media affects people in Japan, China, Indonesia, South Africa, Kenya, Brazil, Chile, Mexico, Tonga, the same way as it affects us? I mean, yeah, there are social cultural differences, but guess what? It's having an effect everywhere. So yeah, it's a mega narrative, but it's also a meta narrative. And I think people like Jacques Ellul talking about technology come very close to explaining it. So yeah, nobody can explain everything. So anyway, yeah. So I've got but what I was saying about meta and mega narratives and stuff is that I am saying to myself, there is a reason beyond simply studying history, which is my stated goal for going to Florence, and it is there is another thing. I can feel it coming to my mind. I can't quite put it into words yet, but I know it's there, and I've had these feelings before. One of the times I had these feelings is when I started coming up with my ideas about time. And first I had to have ideas about memory first, and then suddenly it was like this whole thing broke open. But now I'm thinking there's something about how cultural things are made, how new cultures are started. And so I'm not going there with anything in specific. but I'm just going there to learn. So the first museum I go to there will be the archaeological museum to learn about the Etruscans. I'm not going to go straight to the Uffizi Gallery and see the Botticellis and Leonardos and stuff like that. I'm building up to that. I want to understand. And I think that is how we make meaningful uh, discoveries in our life. It's not about being a tourist. It is, however, about connecting with the culture. So I have my friend Gilles, who lives up in the Italian part of Switzerland, is coming down for 3 days. There's another guy, Gianluca, who works at a bookstore there that I'll be connecting to. John, hello. And there are. So I'm connecting with Italy as well, and I'm doing a lot of cultural thinking about Italy and Rome and the Renaissance and all of these things. So I'm challenging myself. I'm reading right now Machiavelli's History of Florence. I'm challenging myself to learn more. Because again, I may be almost 70. I'm in my 70th year. I will complete it in July. But I am purposely not giving in to aging. Yeah, I'm going to age. I can feel my knees getting a little more sore when I do things. That doesn't mean you stop using your knees. Just sit at home, get no exercise. That's just why. So one of the things I'm doing is I know that the Duomo, the big dome in Florence, to go inside, to go to the top, there are 463 steps. That's work. So what I'm doing is, next door to me in my park, it goes up the side of the mountain, and there's a place there that has over 400 steps. So I'm going uphill 400 steps to get myself ready. So I did that once. I plan on doing it another 4 times before I go to get myself ready. Because you have to have challenges to live. And one of the challenges I have is I would like to be able to eat better there. Like I say, I bought the tickets. I bought the airfare back in the summer when I felt a little more flush. Certain things have happened since then where I feel a little less flush. I did just spend money that I really shouldn't have to buy the nearly $200 worth of tickets into the museums, and someone will say, yeah, you did the right thing, because that's the whole point of going there. But if you feel like contributing to the channel, buy a book, $25. Do that now. Or if you feel like it, you can just contribute and say, BYRNE, eat, feed BYRNE, and leave that as a note, and I will get that. And if you give more than $25 or more, you also get a book. So, but feel free to do that. Either on PayPal or GoFundMe, which are linked below. Okay, now, there was one other thing I wanted to talk about before I get back into questions. By the way, does anyone want to come on and join me in a conversation here? I would love to have somebody. I really like talking to people while I do these. I mean, obviously, I can talk endlessly by myself, even given the fact that it's kind of giving me a stuffy nose, although I'm a bit better now after blowing my nose during the intermission. But if anyone feels like coming aboard and talking, just let me know. I will send you a link, and you can come aboard. So what else did I want to talk about? Why else am I here? Hold on a second. I'm losing power on this one computer because I accidentally knocked out the plug. Now it's back. Everything's good. We're recharging. So I've talked about the videos coming up, talked about this. Okay, here's the other big thing. So I've got my Sojourn. I'm calling it a Sojourn. Sojourn is different than a journey. A journey is where you go from place to place to place. But a sojourn is where you just go to one place and you stay in that place. And this goes with my ideas about traveling, which is to say that it's about we shouldn't just endlessly travel. I'm trying to get people to reconsider notions of tourism. And I think if you want to find meaning, you have to have a reason to be somewhere. And so what I'm doing is I am just going to one place, 2 weeks. Now, what's funny is you go on the internet to look for videos about this, and I find them. The majority of them, it's the same with videos here or videos in Prague or videos anywhere. The majority of them will tell you how to get the most out of Florence in 2 days or a weekend or one day, which to me is just like absurd, especially if you do this in height of the tourist season, because you're not going to see anything. Yeah, you'll get into the Uffizi, maybe you'll get some sort of you know, time spent with Botticelli's Birth of Venus or something like that. But if you ever actually watch people's videos that they made while they're traveling and watch how many people are in that room at the same time, you can't spend any time actually contemplating the work, thinking about it. And that is the importance of it. The importance is not to simply get a selfie of yourself with Botticelli in the background or something, or Leonardo or Michelangelo or something. The importance is to look at the work and be confronted by it because it's trying to tell you something. The artist spent so much time making that for a reason. When I went to the Vatican several years ago, I went through the Vatican Museum. It was December, early December, the 1st of December, and it was still massively crowded, but a lot less, I guess, than I was there at the beginning, and I went into the walked around. There were a lot of people, and I went into the Sistine Chapel, and it's just fantastic. And I just stayed there as long as I could, looking up, looking at the Last Judgment, looking at the ceiling, and then I had to pass through that way later in the day, about 2-3 hours later, and you couldn't move in that room. And I just thought, how sad, how tragic that these people have come here and are part of this cattle crossing where everyone stops and goes, "Oh, look, this is something important," and they can't see it because they're just being there's you can't. I mean, if you fell, you wouldn't be able to hit the ground because there were so many people. So I'm going to one place for 2 weeks, and I've purposely chosen the dead time of the year because it's not about the nice vacation. It's about learning. It's about meaning. It's about staying afloat. Will I visit? Yes, the Museum of Pinocchio. Absolutely. And I found that. And I was thinking of actually going to Collodi, the adopted last name of the writer, Carlo Collodi, but a little village. But I think going to the museum will do it for me. But yes, I'm really looking forward to that. And in fact, I'm bringing a little copy of Pinocchio with me. I did listen to a condensed version of it. I had it on a double vinyl record, but I'm taking the whole book with me to read along the way. So it'll be a Pinocchio trip, without a doubt. Also, I plan on eating Italian food. And there's one I really want to get, and it's called Florentine steak, or steak Florentine, or Fiorentina, or something, beef steak, whatever it is in Italian. But I love T-bone steaks. I love steaks. And evidently, this is the steak. I mean, there's probably some Texas steakhouses and such that probably have another variation on steak. But this is supposedly made from one of the best kinds of beef in the world. The beef that's in the I guess the Chianti region, but it's a local beef with this massive piece of I'm going to do that with my friends while I'm there because you're not supposed to eat one of these by yourself, and that's the thing. One of the things I just found out is Italians don't do the ordering in thing much. I mean, you can do that here, you can do that in America, you can do that in many places where you can just call and there's a service that'll bring stuff to you. But the Italians are more like, no, you got to go out and eat. You have to be part of the world. So I'm looking forward to that. And there are other things I want to eat. What is it? Lampredotto. And there are different kinds of, I want to get, have to have an Italian pizza. Last time I had an Italian pizza, I was in Palermo. And it was like someone just went out and did everything absolutely fresh. Incredible stuff. So I look forward to that. Yes, Coloni. So I look forward to that. And again, if you wish to buy BYRNE a meal, make a little donation and say feed BYRNE, and I'll know what it's for. So, okay. Would anyone like to come on and talk? Got about a half hour here before I shut down. If you wish to, let me know. Yeah. Bistecca al Fiorentina. Thank you. I know it, but just going off the top of my head, I'm not Italian. Oh, who knew? So let's see. What else have we got? Okay, so I'm going to Florence, doing that. Here's the big news. So coming up on, and this is for, of course, there's 11 people watching right now, so it's not exactly big. I'm sure people have come and gone as well. But I'm making this for the people who will come along later, the other, 150, 200 people who will watch this. And I'm going to make an official announcement about this after I get back from Florence, but this is something for those of you who've made it this far to think about. My birthday is on July 22nd, and I will be 70 years old. And that seems like a birthday I should celebrate in a couple of ways. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to invite a few very good friends to come here and spend some time the week before my birthday here. But I also thought there are some people, I want to do another gathering in Georgia. It worked so well last time. I had only 6 people, but that was a good number, actually. I wouldn't want to get it above 10. And but I'm going to do another one, and they're going to overlap. So my friends will be here, my birthday will be here, but the gathering in Georgia will start before my birthday. So I'll have both the people here in Tbilisi, the people, my friends coming, and gathering folks will come. One thing I'm trying to do is I want to see if I can get Paul Vanderklay here. Now, I can't just get Paul Vanderklay to come here because, so I'm going to have to find a way to raise the money to get him here. So it's just something we're thinking about out loud here. But also, what we're going to do for the gathering, it's going to be similar to the last one, except it'll be, let's see, I've got the dates written here. So the gathering people will arrive on the 20th of July. My birthday is on the 22nd. We'll have the first gathering group, just people coming over to my house with my friends and such, on the 21st. Then it ends on the 28th. That is the Tuesday. So that's, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days altogether if you count the beginning and the end. And some people may want to come earlier or stay longer. But what we're doing is we're spending the first part of the gathering here in Tbilisi. Now, unfortunately, because it's the summer, and the reason I'm doing this in the summer is because I have friends who are connected to the school schedule. And the school schedule will not allow them to come in October or November or May, the times that are really the best for coming here, April, May. But I want some of those people to be able to come to Tbilisi. I've already got probably about 3 people coming already who are connected to the school schedule. Very interesting people as well. And here's the deal. So we will spend the first part of our time, like I said, there is no, a lot of the cultural stuff isn't working at that point. Theaters and dance and puppetry and stuff doesn't really happen in the summers here. And the summers are hot. But the nice news is that there is this very traditional folk festival that happens up on the mountain behind me. I could actually walk to it, although it's a nice walk up, but easy to walk down. But here's the interesting thing. It's amazing. I went there this year, and that's what gave me the idea. It's like, oh, this would be a perfect thing to use as, well, temptation. You should come for the traditional music at this thing and dance. And they had the group Sukashvili dance there. And I've spent a little bit of time with them, and it was just amazing. But what was really great was you'd walk around and there'd be just people and groups singing to each other and such. And it wasn't overly crowded. It felt really great. And I said, I got to get some people to see this. And in fact, one of the things I'll do after I get back is make a video with some of the footage that I shot of this festival. And the great thing is it happens on 3 weekends. And guess whose birthday is exactly in the middle? Mine. So when these people first come, they can go to a night at the festival. No, they can't. They have to wait. But then the next weekend, there will be the third week. And so, or they could come earlier and go to the festival. I'll think about the dates a little. But the point is this. We'll spend some time in Tbilisi looking around, talking, meeting Georgians, which I think you need to do. And then we'll go out to the mountains. And I haven't decided exactly where. I've got 2 choices. But we'll go into the mountains and where it'll be much cooler. And just appreciate a little bit of the Georgian nature and have more conversations. And I think anyone who was at the last gathering in Georgia will appreciate this one quite a bit. So something to think about. If you weren't able to come to the last one, or if you were, you might want to come again. I realize times are tight and strange financially. So, if I can get 5, 6 people to come again, that'll be perfect. I've already got, looks like about 3. So if I can get another 4 or 5 more, that would be great. So that said, Gathering in Georgia 2 is coming in July, starts around the 20th. Like I said, I'm going to work on these dates. And so for my actual birthday dinner, you won't forget it. We'll just say that. So what else have we got? So anybody? Yeah, the walk to the mountain festival is great. And I walk back in the dark. And Tbilisi is fine to walk around in the dark. But there's also a different people call these different things, a tram, gondola, over air thing that takes you up. They call it the ropeway here. It takes you up to the mountain. And it's a pretty steep climb up. But like I say, the road's going back, and we walked in the middle of the night. Super simple coming back. But it is actual work. But the point is this, something to think about. So let's see. What am I doing? Any questions? Oh, let me go back to the first questions I got from the Ouroboros Reflections. The next one is, it says, are there any similar books that you would recommend on the topic of shadows for dark and night, presence and absence, etc.? To which I would say most of Gombrich's work on the Renaissance all deals with perspective and such. And this is the deep stuff. I learned a lot I have most of Gombrich's work on the Renaissance. I'm not going to Florence as, this guy who just wants to learn about the Renaissance. I've been reading about the Renaissance for ages. I've been thinking about it seriously since about 1977. That's when I've really started thinking about what the Renaissance meant. And so I have these, I have maybe about 10 books by Gombrich, and about 4 or 5 of them deal with the Renaissance and perspective and such. Then, of course, I learned about him from Rookmacher's lectures. And so, which was a great thing. He's very interesting. I don't agree with all of the background of his philosophical outlook, but what he actually presents as evidence, as facts, is great. So I would say that there might be some other stuff I'll think about. If you want to read the book, which is the most disturbing but really valuable book on art, is Jacques Ellul's book, The Empire of Nonsense. And it's basically his book about how essentially art has been captured by technology. And when we look at what's happening with AI now, uh, it's another subject. So, then he had one more thought. He says, "What is your take on the pretty drastic changes in Peterson's overall demeanor and attitude? Earlier, he was way more balanced and nuanced. Now he seems spiteful and bitter." Thoughts? To which my thoughts are, I don't see it that way. I don't see much difference between where he was now and then. I see some. Part of it is he made a decision at some point to become more professional in his outlook. And I think he was forced into that because he was forced out of his clinical psychology and university teaching. I don't have as much. People often will say things like, "Oh, he's changed." And I'm going like, not really. I mean, you'd have to really go point by point and tell me how he's changed. You'd have to say he used to think this and now he thinks that. Yeah, he's a bit more contentious at times, but I think that's just part of where he's essentially allowed more politics into his thinking. And we can agree or disagree on what we think about it. But I haven't got that many problems with him. I don't listen to everything he puts out, but every now and then I'll put something else out. I think part of it is also that the Peterson message has basically been absorbed. And once everyone gets that done, they want more development. And the thing is, what he's been doing, what I actually appreciate about what he's been doing, is he's been really interviewing a lot of interesting people. Not that I listened to all his interviews, but I've listened to enough of them to make me say, yeah, that's really fascinating. I mean, he's hooked up with the Daily Wire world. I had problems with that from the beginning, but not enough to make me think he's changed in any radical way. If anything, what he's become is more partisan, and that's fine. A person can do that. I haven't got a problem with that. But my feeling is, you see, I come at Peterson very differently than a lot of people do, because when I first discovered Jordan Peterson, I knew most of what he was saying. I mean, when I went and worked on myself, it was kind of, back in the 1980s, it was kind of like, I already knew a lot of these principles from doing that. And he has a very set group of writers. He also has a certain mindset that he coming out of psychology. I don't share all of that. I've always had a lot more questions about Jung than he ever seems to have. I have always been glad that he had Dostoevsky and Solzhenitsyn there to lean against Jung. But in my own thinking, I have Jacques Ellul, who I'm pretty sure he would listen to the talk of re-enchantment today and go, no, you can't do that. He's a much more hard-headed realist. And at the same time, I have Tolkien, Lewis, Barfield. Barfield's very different in his thinking than Jacques Ellul. Jacques Ellul is influenced by Karl Barth and Kierkegaard. But Ellul, at one point he said the whole problem with the West is that everything became sacred. And so the sacred, but then he wonders, can anything be sacred again? Well, that dovetails very interestingly with Barfield. And Barfield basically says that the modern outlook has created idols out of everything because it no longer connects to them. And then at the same time, he talks about final participation. Now, what I've noticed is when people talk about Barfield, and I have a whole video about Barfield's ideas of final participation, they all hear it as eschatological. They all put their Christian, Orthodox, Catholic, hyper-dispensational, whatever, Protestantism in there. They put the New Age thoughts or whatever to make Barfield read like they want him to read. Whereas I've always taken Barfield as a bit of a... Barfield and Lewis didn't really think alike, and yet did. It's a very strange thing, but I love them both. So, hey, Belle, welcome. Oh, I'm reading that one. You're probably not even here anymore. So anyway, yeah, I think Peterson's doing fine. Well, I get worried about Peterson when he leans into being a propagandist, and I lean into anybody. It doesn't matter if I agree with them or not. But once you there's a and propaganda is techniques. So it's probably my whole problem with Daily Wire is because they have these techniques they use. And, there's this whole issue with Brett Cooper recently, and she and the Daily Wire parted for some reason we're not really sure about, but it probably was what they use as a euphemism in divorces. uh, Amenable. What is that word that they use? It's not amenable. Amicable. Yes. Which means, yeah, there was a lot of fighting and fussing, but we're going to hold our mouths, not say much about it. But I'm kind of glad that she's kind of separated from them because they are always propagandists. That doesn't mean I disagree with them. I do on some issues, but it does mean they work in a propaganda mode. And that mode tends to have an us and a them, whereas I tend to, if you listen to my recent video on evil, I tend to think we're all in the same boat together. And at the same time, I think there is salvation. I think there is redemption. But I also think we are always working with mixed motives. And once you learn that, then you're free. Because you won't feel so betrayed by people. Because okay, we got the mixed motives going here again. We don't know what's going on. And that's life. So, okay, any more questions or anything? Yes, exactly. So, what are we going to do? What I'm going to do, so we got a gathering in Georgia. We got the Florence thing. Just a quick reminder, I need to blow my nose again, so I'm going to play you this. It's less than 3 minutes long. Enjoy. I'll be right back.
It's here, rescued from Alaska. This year, my first ever book, 3 Motions. Motions is an old English word for puppet shows. Indeed, there are 3 puppet plays here written by myself for my Alaskan puppetry classes, including my versions of the medieval classic Everyman, cleverly entitled Every Puppet, and even better, my retelling of the Faust legend, updated for the 21st century, also very cleverly, with a special introductory essay on the meaning of puppetry. Now, are these 50-page booklets physically worth the $25 price? No. But this isn't about material possessions. This is about being part of this odd channel and whatever it is we're doing here, trying to understand things. And these little booklets are unique. Each one is numbered and signed by yours truly. When they sell out, they are gone. I will never reprint them. Special deals if you want multiple copies for a production of your own. Just let me know you're doing it. That's $25 for the USA, Canada, Mexico, most of Europe. There may be some corners, like, I don't know, Russia, etc., and might require some extra money, as would Asia, Latin America, and Africa, or Tonga, or Australia probably. I'll have to add another $5 or so, depending on where you're from. But part of the money goes to my assistants who are shipping these from me from their respective American and European locations. Use the links below, PayPal, GoFundMe, and make sure you add the word book, B-O-O-K, book, to let me know this is not just a normal contribution to the channel, which you can still make. This book will not last long. Help me keep the channel alive. I get no other funding except from you, the viewer. I don't get it from YouTube. I don't get sponsorships. It's up to you. If you appreciate what I do on this channel, get a book. It's a great way to remember what this channel was about, and it'll be something unique because they're all signed and numbered.
Okay, yeah, get a book. Support the channel. Help me on my Florence trip. What can I say? It would be nice to get some support for doing these things. And I will bring back my thoughts about the Renaissance in multiple videos. And some of them will be on the travel channel, Georgia and Georgian Crossroads and beyond. The more philosophical ones will be on this channel. More cultural reflections will be on this channel. Oh, Jacopo, it's good to see you there. And yeah, you're right. Peugeot says, we always expect people to be without flaws. And that is a problem. Jacopo, I'm wondering, well, you're not near Florence, are you? You're probably further south, right? If let me know on that. Because if you are near Florence, it would be nice to see you if you could travel up there for a couple days or something. I've got another friend who's coming up between the 6th and the 9th. It would be nice to have a few people. You're further north in Turin. Well, my friend is coming down from Ticino. So, he's coming the 6th through the 9th. If you came at the same time, that would be great. We could all get together and have conversations and such like that. Think about it. I'll just be in, you might manage. Yeah, it's not that far by train. So I will get in touch with you, or send me a message through my email at reckoningmotions@yahoo.com, and we will find a way to hook up with each other. And let's see. So I'm going to end this probably in about 5-10 minutes or less. And I appreciate all the people who've been wandering through. Let's see. Okay. Is there anything else I need to say that was on my mind to say? Okay. Yeah, well, you see, I have writing, audio, movies, interviews, YouTubery, film reviews, and everything else. And I need to get them all in one place, which is why I need to get this new channel together. Here's something I need to think about for a little bit later. Came on late, missed everything, bummer. Well, that's all right, Andrew. You can go back and watch it. Merry Christmas. Yes, indeed. Shobas Gilasoft, as they say here in Georgia. And we'll be wishing each other Merry Christmas on the way out here. Glad you had a chance to eat and take part a little bit. Glad to see that. One of the things I'm having real problems with, and this will be something I have to actually have a specific little mini fundraiser for later. Once I get, I get all the Georgian music sent out, then I'll feel like less guilt about that. Is that I am working with 2012 Macs, which are actually a really great computer. I have a friend of mine who's a Mac guy. He loves his 2012 because it's the last one where you could put CDs into the machine and videos and such, DVDs. And I use that all the time as a feature. And I know there's separate, little engines, drivers for that, but I like it all together. But anyway, one of the problems is there's a little bit of more upgrading I can do, and then I'm at the end. And I'm starting now. For instance, when I open up a YouTube page, it takes about 1.5 minutes now for it to open. And the reason it takes that long is because they're changing the codes on everything, which means my poor little MacBook Pros from 2012, which I have upgraded continuously inside this machine. And one of the things I don't like about the future world I'm going into is you can't work on them anymore. They're making it so it's impossible to open, which to me is just stupid. But I've got 2 terabytes in here. I've got a lot more memory and whatnot. Everything is it works for me. But now I'm getting signs from Facebook like you are no longer supported and this sort of stuff, which means the world I've been living in for the last 6 years, is coming to an end. And I got to do something before it does. There is one update that I've been able to kind of keep myself doing this. But for instance, I can no longer download videos off YouTube. I can no longer download audio. Well, no, audio is a problem too. Photos is not a problem. That really impacts what I'm doing. So what I have to do is I have to get a new serious computer for editing. Fortunately, I have a cell phone that's up to date. So, as far as reading stuff and connecting with stuff, that's not a problem. But for making videos, that's going to be a serious problem going forward. And so I'm going to need some help with that. But before we get there, which won't be for a couple of months when I really start thinking about how best to proceed, they cost, there's an extra tariff just on bringing those things here. And if I get a cheaper one from America sent here, they're still going to charge me a hefty tax on it when it comes through the customs. So whatever, it's just I'm looking at least $2,000-$3,000 to get the kind. I need to upgrade my system. I almost got a computer here earlier this year while I was still flush, but I looked at it and I saw, oh, it doesn't have enough stuff inside, and I can't add it later because of the new policies. I hate this. Plus, I'm getting checked with security measures more and more and more. So I've got to do something. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, probably in a month or two. Well, any last thoughts or questions before we get out of here? I was searching for the cultural perspective. Okay. You must have watched that video I made on the tarantellas and the pizzikas and things like that. That's really good. Okay, dog catcher, thank you, and Jacopo and Andrew and whoever's out there still, thank you for ups if you're there. Thanks for hanging out, and I want to wish you a very meaningful Christmas. Try to find what's beneath the covering, and don't just accept all the. Try not to be burnt out on the commercial stuff. Try to find real Christmas music, and that's why I've been making the videos that I did a couple days ago with Laura Sillenpaw out of Wisconsin, because I want to expose you to the real traditional Christmas music. And I don't care what you've got in your library, but if you're listening to Christmas music, it should be the good stuff. And unfortunately, these days, there is no way to find the good stuff by searching for it. Trust me. I have just pretended to be a stupid person looking for good traditional Christmas music, and what I come up with is just nightmarish. So I'm trying. That's the way we do it here. And I appreciate all of you. I'm going to be back for New Year's Eve here, which will go to, midnight plus about a half hour after midnight here. But that's much earlier than wherever you're living. So it's like, I think California is 12 hours off the Pacific. And, going back is like that. If you're in Australia, I don't know what to say. You'll be having midnight before me and probably be asleep then. But stay tuned. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas. And any final words before I get out of here? My wife just had a baby. Nice. So, well, my as the Georgians say, Gilasoft on the baby. Gilasoft means congratulations. They say that for everything. They say Shobas Gilasoft. So instead of Merry Christmas, it's the congratulations of Christmas. But it means more than just simply congratulations in the kind of dead English sense of the word. It means deep, heartfelt feelings with you for that. Okay, so thank you for being with me. I'm out of here. I'm going to say farewell now and Merry Christmas, but I'll wait to say Happy New Year till New Year's Eve. See you then.